and unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to, remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm happy to have so many guests here and people from all over the planet, actually. Welcome to Edo. We're happy to see you. We have guests from Japan. We have guests from Boston. We have guests from my neighborhood online. So extends farther than the number of people would suggest, but thank you all for being here. You know that I've been interested in what's happening to the planet, and I keep learning more about it, not doing enough, but I keep reading. So right now I am engaged in Thich Nhat Hanh's last book, which one of my neighbors online is also reading. It's called Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet. And what I hope to touch on this morning is the fact that there's no saving it unless we're connected to it. That first we have to realize how complicated our connection is to the planet. So I'm going to take my talk from parts of a section of the beginning of the book about the Diamond Sutra. He calls it Diamond Breakthrough. In the Diamond Sutra, the meditator is urged to throw away, to release 4 notions in order to understand our own true nature and the true nature of reality. The 4 are the self, the notion of human being, the notion of living beings, and the notion of lifespan. In the sutra, it says that if you're still caught up in these notions, you are not yet free and you can't be a real bodhisattva, an awakened being helping to relieve suffering in the world. But if you can break through these ideas, you'll have the insight, understanding, and freedom you need to save the planet. It takes insight and courage to throw away an idea. If we have suffered deeply, it may be because we held on to an idea we weren't able to release. Throwing away is a really strong term. It's not just letting go. The purpose of looking deeply and meditating is to get insight. And insight is something we have to experience for ourselves. We have to learn in such a way that it helps us overcome our challenges and obstacles. The aim of a Zen master is to help students to transform. It is not to transmit knowledge or views. A Zen master is not a professor. When I saw that sentence, I read it 3 times. A Zen master is not a professor. Thich Nhat Hanh continues, my tradition belongs to the lineage of the 9th century Zen master, Linji. He said, my aim is not to give you knowledge. My aim is to break you free from your views. If it's real insight, it will have the power to free you from your anger, your fear, and your suffering. The first notion you must throw away is the notion of self. This is a very deep-rooted belief in every human being, that there is a self separated from the rest of the world, that we are ourselves and everything and everyone else, including the earth, is not us. We're born with this strong belief that we're separate. I'm not you, that's your problem, that's not my problem. Intellectually, we may know that nothing can exist by itself alone. But in reality, we still believe things can, and we still behave as if we're a self-entity. This is the base of our thinking and behavior, and it creates a lot of suffering. It takes real training to throw this notion away. In fact, there is no self there. There's thinking, there's reflection, but there isn't really just a person behind it. When Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am," he was saying that during the time he's thinking, he is the thinking. The Buddha said there is thinking going on, but it's not certain there's an I behind the thinking. If there's a painful feeling, we can say for sure there's a painful feeling going on. But as for the person who's the feeler, that's not so sure. It's similar to saying it's raining. The rain is something certain. It is raining, but there's no rainer. You don't need a rainer for rain to be possible. And you don't need a thinker for thinking to be possible. You don't need a feeler for feeling to be possible. That's the teaching of non-self. In the idea of self, there is this idea that I am my body. This body is me, or this body is mine, it belongs to me. But this notion doesn't correspond to reality. When you look deeply into your body, you see that it's a stream. You can see your parents and your ancestors in that stream. So the stream is there, but it's not sure that there's just someone called myself. And in the stream, you can see not only human ancestors, but animal, plant, and mineral ancestors. There's a continuum. Whether there's a person, I'm not so sure. A better statement would be, I inter-am. It's closer to the truth in the light of interconnectedness. If father and son, mother and daughter have the insight of no self, they can look at each other in the light of inner being. I'm the continuation of my parents and my ancestors. That's clear. I don't have a separate self. Looking into myself, I can see my father, my mother, my ancestors. I'm made of non-me elements. And when all those elements come together, they produce me. I am that. I don't have a separate self. Seeing reality in this way, you're no longer lonely because you are the cosmos. The whole cosmos can be found in you. Not long ago, after sitting on a Wednesday night, I was out in the parking lot talking to Gendo, and we got onto the topic of what's in the sky and what we're seeing up there. And if any of you are watching NOVA, you are looking at pictures sent back from the Webb telescope of actually the beginning of the cosmos. It is miraculous, these pictures. If you haven't seen them, find them. They will just blow your mind away. But Gendo reminded me, we are made out of stardust. He said that red in your blood is iron, and that iron came from somewhere off the planet originally. So we are really all made of the cosmos. Suppose a wave appearing on the ocean asks herself, who am I? If the wave has some time to get in touch with herself, she'll find that she is the ocean. She is a wave, but at the same time, she's the ocean. And she's not only this wave, but she's other waves. So she sees the connectedness, the inner being nature between her and the other waves, and she no longer discriminates between self and non-self. It's important that the wave realizes she has a wave body and she has her ocean body. If you live mindfully and with concentration, you will touch more and more deeply that truth that's in you. And one day you'll find that you're resting on the ground of the cosmos. The second notion in the Diamond Sutra tells us to throw away the notion of human being. We know that Homo sapiens is a very young species on the planet. We arrive very late, but we behave as if we're the boss here. We believe ourselves to be exceptional. We think we have a right over everything else and every other species, as though they've been created for us. With this view, we've done a lot of damage to the earth. We want safety, prosperity, and happiness only for humans at the expense of everything else. And recently, I think I heard we destroyed about half the species. And yet, looking deeply, we see that humans are made only of non-human elements, including plants, animals, and minerals. If you remove or return all these elements, a human being can't exist anymore. And yet, we seek to protect and defend ourselves by destroying our non-us elements, including other species. Humans are made of all our ancestors. The mountains, the river, the rose, the planet are all made of non-mountain, non-river, non-rose, non-planet elements. When we see that, it frees us up. The third notion we have to break is the notion of living beings. Many of us are caught in the distinction between sentient or animate beings and non-sentient or inanimate matter. Yet the science of evolution tells us that we are not only human and animal ancestors, but we also have mineral ancestors, like the iron I mentioned in our blood. We're made of non-sentient elements. The speck of dust, the little particle, the quark, they are us and we are them. We need to transcend the notions of body and mind, matter and spirit, consciousness and the material world. Scientists of our time have discovered that even electrons and protons have their own intelligence. It's no less than a consciousness. A kernel of corn has its own way of knowing. You just plant it in the soil, and in 10 days, it knows how to sprout and go on to become a towering maize plant. You can also translate the term living beings as mortals. We discriminate not only between living and inanimate, but between mortal or what is, and immortal or what is holy. The meditation here is to look into yourself deeply and realize that you are made of non-you elements, including holiness. The fourth notion the Diamond Sutra teaches us to remove is the one of lifespan. We believe that there's a moment in time when we're born, and then there's another moment when we die, and we think we exist only between those 2 points. That is to get caught in the idea of a lifespan. We think we're only on the earth for a short moment. We have the impression that we came from non-being into being, and then after a while we're turned back into non-being. But it's recorded in the Sutra of 42 chapters that one day the Buddha said to his monks, "How long does a lifetime last?" One of them said, 100 years. The Buddha smiled, and another monk said, 20 years? Another one said, 1 day? And then one monk said, the length of a single breath. And the Buddha said, yes, that's correct. We are reborn in every breath. Today's you is already a new lifetime, succeeding yesterday's you. There is a Zen koan that says, where were you before your grandmother was born? This is not a philosophical question, but it's an object of contemplation that should capture your imagination. In order for it to be a real koan, you have to invest 100% of your body and mind to get the breakthrough. Observation tells us it's impossible to pass from something to nothing, or to go from someone to no one. We are born, we are already there. When we die, we'll continue to be there. The scientist Lavoisier discovered nothing's created, nothing is lost, everything is transformed. When I read that, I thought, it's another way of looking at reincarnation, because we talk about that term in here a lot. You, as the continuation of the Buddha, must help offer the world a path that can prevent the destruction of our ecosystems and reduce fear, violence, and despair. We have to allow our ancestors, our teachers, the Buddha in us to act. The work of saving the planet continues beyond our lifetime. Throwing away these four wrong notions is the meditation proposed by the Diamond Sutra. I think I've mentioned in here before that several years ago I went to a conference where Thich Nhat Hanh met with 1,000 people, pretty silent people too, 1,000 people, 75 of them were children. And he did a lot of talking about bells. He said that it is often the bell, the sound of the bell, that can bring us back to our attention and the present moment. And in fact, he had a random bell that rang during our meals. We would be eating, and then the bell would ring out of nowhere, and we would put our utensils down and spend about a minute just returning our attention to our breath, to the present moment. Just a reminder. And he also suggested we use our phone that way. That when the phone rings, we let that be a bell that brings us back to the present moment, so that our attention is on how will we speak to the person that we're going to answer to. It's a little part of our practice, I think. A couple of days ago, the tricycle saying for the day, the little Dharma in the morning, was from Jack Kornfield. The more solidly we grasp our identity, the more solid our problems become. Once I asked a delightful old Sri Lankan meditation master to teach me the essence of Buddhism. He just laughed and said 3 times, "No self, no problem." Thank you. And I think because we have visitors and children, we will take our questions and comments down to coffee and biscotti.
Page 12 or 19 online again. May the merit of this penetrate into each thing in all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha way. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Desires are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. Let